Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make a graph on Excel. So when you are graphing on Excel, you need to make sure that you have highlighted your independent and dependent variables that you want to graph. So my independent variable, I'm going to go for my quantitative one and I use my number of carbons. It's my independent. Then my dependent variable, I'm going to use my average. So there's no point in graphing your trials to find trends. Like the purpose of your trials is to calculate an average. So you need to graph your average as your dependent variable. So quick backtrack then. How did I highlight two different columns? So I highlighted my first one, then I held Command. So hold Command and it allows you to select a separate second column. So I've highlighted my columns. Now I need to go up to Insert. Over here, you will then see all the different graph options. So common ones you'll use are probably bar graph, line graph, and scatter plot. We're going to make a scatter plot today. So you click that one, and then generally speaking, it's just the first option. So let's click the first option, and we have a beautiful scatter plot. All right, I would then recommend double checking that it's actually plotted your values where you want them. So for example, this first value should be 2,763. So that's 2 on my X, 763 on my Y. So yes, it's plotting my independent across the bottom here and my dependent across the top. Sometimes though, you might get a really funky looking graph and you're like, what the heck is happening? My recommendation is to, again, in this chart design tab, go over here to switch rows and columns and press that. And generally speaking, that should fix your graph. It's basically just switching where it's plotting your independent and dependent variable. So now it's in the right direction. Graphs need to have axes labels, so let's add those in. So in the chart design tab, over here on the left, there's two ways you can do it. You can either go for add chart element and individually add things. So for example, add a primary, add a vertical, add a chart title, etc. Or you can go for quick layout and choose like a pre-designed template. I usually choose this first one because it adds in a title, axes labels, and a legend or key if needed. Since I'm only plotting one set of data, I actually don't need this, so I'm going to delete it. So I'm going to click on it and just press delete. Now I need to label my axes. So this is when you would then just go and label them as necessary. So this is heat of combustion. Don't forget to include your units. Kilojoules per mole. This was number of carbons. And you would then include, well, actually, I don't recommend using a chart title on Excel. I'm going to delete that. Reason being is I would include your title on your Word document. It just formats much more neatly. You can center it in your page. If you're going to have a chart title on your Excel graph, then don't write one in Word. I often see in kids' reports two titles. They've typed it in Word and have it on their graph. No. Just have one title. I would recommend typing it in Word. So we have got our axes labels, we have our points graphed, and we are pretty much good to go. So there is our scatter plot. The next video will show you how to add trend lines. But before we go, I did want to show you one little trick. Now, I'm going to just go back for a minute and plot. I'm going to make a bar graph. So using categorical data. So I'm going to use my names, ethanol, pentanol, octanol, and my average heat of combustions. Insert a bar graph. And the reason I want to do this is because if you cannot get your names down the bottom here to be correct, and this works for scatter plots too, by the way, like if these numbers here, for example, were supposed to be 100, 200, 300, and Excel's just not working with you, what you can do is you can click your graph. Up here in chart design, one of my favorite buttons is select data. If you press that, there is an option down here for horizontal axes label. So if you press this little button here, it brings you back to your spreadsheet where you can then select what you want it to be called. So I want that axes to be called ethanol, pentanol, octanol. Press enter, press OK, and it actually ensures that these are labeled. So that's a really useful tip. People don't generally know how to do that. But yeah, it's how to label your horizontal axes if Excel is just not working with you. So I hope that was helpful.